Welcome, it's Facts You Don't Know. If it's your first time here and you want to find out new facts that will definitely make you smarter and more, and first make sure to subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss anything.
His mother abandoned him and he raised his sister. However, she paid him this way. Most parents are capable of giving their lives for their children, although exceptionally there are some parents who choose to ignore their children, leaving them alone. For some people, life can be hard, but if we surround ourselves with our loved ones, love can heal wounds no matter how deep they are. Friends, I recently found a forum in which there are people who have suffered from abandonment. They tell their stories anonymously. I found the story of Pedro and Morelia very interesting. So today I'll tell you about it. They were first abandoned by their father when they were very young. Teresa, the mother, was very emotionally affected, and unfortunately, as many husbands who are separated from their wives do, she also neglected her children. Teresa washed clothes and cleaned houses. He could seldom hold a steady job for more than a couple months as he'd entered the world of games and vice. That's how she met Jose, with whom she began a relationship. It had only been 3 months when Jose told Teresa, "Get out of your house and live with me. Your children are already grown and can take care of themselves." Teresa replied, "I can't, Jose. Pedrito is only 13 years old and Morelia 9. The man, without thinking, replied, "Pedro is already a man now. At his age, I used to work for him to leave school, to take care of the house. And his sister," Jose continued speaking, "if you don't come with me, our thing is over. I'm not going to live with your annoying children." By now, Teresa was no longer acting sane. I was lost in the game, in the vices, and Jose represented that new world in which she wanted to be, living the fantasy of not having obligations and feeling that everything was fine. So, Teresa left her children alone in that humble little house and went with Jose. Teresa told her children, "I will move in with Jose. You are already grown up. I will come to visit you whenever I can and bring you something to eat. Pedro, you must take care of our house, so you can keep working hard on it. Market, take care of your sister, and Morelia, take care of the house. Wash, clean, and tidy up. Do your chores and obey your brother, please." Pedro just looked at his mother while feeling confusion and anger, but he didn't say anything to her. Morelia, yes, replied, "Mom, take us with you. Why can't we accompany you? Don't leave us here. I promise you I'll behave well." "They can't go with me because Jose doesn't want them at home. Besides, they don't need me." Without remorse, Teresa took her things and left her home, leaving behind her children and the memory of her husband's abandonment. While their children cried, who were hugging at the door, against his will, Pedrito had to drop out of school. He was a very smart kid and was always the first in his class, but he couldn't study and work at the same time. In addition, he had to look for a second job because what he earned in the market was not enough to pay the rent on the house, the basic services, the food, and everything his little sister needed for school. The boy was extremely agile, responsible, and won over everyone he met. That's how he got a job as a bus collector, as his neighbor Don Vicente owned a bus. Every day, Pedrito would go to the market before dawn. He would help Don Carlos at the vegetable stall, and before noon, after eating the food that he always brought him, Dona Rosa, Don Carlos' wife, was waiting for Don Vicente on his bus, in the same corner as always. Pedrito's place was at the door of the bus, shouting and announcing the destination of the collective transport and charging the passengers. But the bus kept breaking down, as it was very old. Don Vicente was the one who knew a lot about mechanics. He repaired it himself to save money, and Pedrito always asked him to help him out. This allowed him to continually learn mechanics, a trade he had learned to love. So time passed, Morelia finished high school, and nothing was needed at home. Teresa, their mother, rarely went to visit them, and unfortunately, instead of taking something for her children, she was going to take money from Pedrito for his vices. The poor boy gave her the money, but the truth was that she did not want her mother and her partner to go to her house because they were a bad example for Morelia. Morelia was always a very calm girl. She obeyed her brother, helped around the house, and did her homework. But as she reached adolescence, she became a bit rebellious. Pedrito tried to play the role of older brother and father as best he could. So he asked Teresa, his mother, not to go home with those conditions. His mother just lowered her head and walked away. They never heard from their mother again, and Morelia blamed her brother. This brought a rift between the siblings. Morelia felt lonely and blamed Pedro for everything. During that time, she met a man much older than her. He brought her things and was going to look at her house while Pedro was gone. He also took her and looked for work. One day, that man told Morelia to go live with him, that she would no longer have to work and she would not have to put up with her brother, who thought she was her father. Morelia, full of resentment, immediately accepted. She was confident that this man was good and would also take care of her. When Pedro found out, he went in search of his sister to the house of that man. He knocked on the door. A man came out, and behind him was his sister Morelia, as if she were protecting herself from Pedro. The man said, "Get out of my house. Morelia doesn't want to see you. Understand that she's not your daughter. She's of legal age and can choose where she wants to be." Pedro, ignoring everything the man was yelling at him, interrupted to tell Morelia, his sister, "I beg you to come home. Forgive me if I did something that will hurt you. All these years I've tried to take care of you the best I could, despite that I was a child too, when our parents left us. But please don't make the mistake of staying with a man much older than you. You'll find a good man with whom you can build a family." As Pedro spoke and tried to approach his sister and take her hand, but barely put a foot in the door, the man jumped on him and pushed them out, while Morelia watched and asked her boyfriend to take Pedro out and throw him out on the street. Pedro couldn't believe what his sister had done. He was very sad, and while his tears were wetting his face, he thought, "What did I do wrong? What mistakes did I make in raising Morelia? How would you save her from this man who just wants to manipulate her and take advantage of her innocence?" Pedro kept trying to communicate with his sister, but her boyfriend kept full control of her phone and forbade her to go out alone. But life went on. After a few months, one night, Pedro was driving his little old car down a very dark and lonely street. Suddenly, he noticed that in the middle of the darkness was an elderly man with his broken-down vehicle. Pedro stopped, got out of the car, and said to the Lord, "Good evening, sir. Can I help you with something? Is there something wrong with your car?" The Lord replied, "Yes, son. Thank you for stopping. I have been here alone for a long time, and the few cars that have passed ignore me. Nice to meet you. My name is Esteban. I don't really know what happened to the car, just he suddenly stopped here in the middle of the dark with my bad eyesight. It's hard for me to do anything. I called my son a long time ago that he must come, but he takes a long time. I guess he was busy." Pedro replied, "Don't worry, Don Esteban. I'll help you. I know some mechanics. It's good to act fast because it's not safe to be here." While Pedro was repairing Don Esteban's car, they talked a lot about the story of Pedro and his sister. So Don Esteban, by way of thanks, offered him support and work in his company. It turns out that he was the owner of a company dedicated to mechanical engineering. As he did in school and in all the jobs he had, Pedro stood out in his new job for being responsible, intelligent, dedicated, and committed. So he was quickly promoted in Don Esteban's company, who ended up taking a lot of love and trust in him. But the greatest gift that Don Esteban was able to give Pedro was the opportunity to study at one of the best universities in the country. As Pedro's life improved, he was able to get a loan for his own apartment and bought a better car. The life of Morelia was a true ordeal. In the 3 years that had elapsed since she'd moved in with this older man, she'd been pregnant twice. She never left her house and was forbidden to communicate with her brother. Morelia, tired of her husband's mistreatment, decided to seek support from her brother, because in the end, he was the only relative she could count on. She had asked the neighbors in the neighborhood where her brother worked, and they gave her information. Morelia went with her children to Pedro's office. When she saw them, her first reaction was to run to hug her family. Pedro was happy. "You won't leave again, will you?" Pedro said to Morelia while smiling. Morelia replied, "Pedro, I have come for help." Pedro interrupted his sister and said, "Don't tell me any more. I don't need details. Now it only matters that you are with me, and that you will not lack anything, neither you nor my nephews." Friends, now tell us, what did you think of this story? What would you have done in Pedro's place? Leave us your answer in the comments section so we can all read it, and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching. Please like and share the video in social networks. We'll be right back to you as fast as we can.